Good evening. You're watching News X. I'm Neha Khanna. A big focus tonight. Last June, when IT employee Swathi was hacked to death at a railway station, Chennai's image as a safe city for women took a severe beating. Just 5 months before the murder, the city was rated the safest in the country by a global consultancy firm. But today, 1 year after the incident, that belief is fast eroding. In a survey conducted by an organization called AWARE, or Awareness for Women to Advocate Their Rights and Equality, 70% of the respondents in Chennai said women faced the risk of being groped or harassed when using public transport. The survey included men, women and members of the transgender community. According to some estimates, about 90% of women walk or use public transport, while that number for men is between 65 to 70%. To increase safety for women, experts say the government has to invest a lot more in public transport, maximize its fleet and prevent crowding. For instance, the 3,500 odd buses operating in Chennai run on twice their capacity. Experience tells us that most people in bus staff are unaware of how to handle complaints, and many women are hesitant to call for attention. The organization AWARE and the Tamil Nadu Transport Department are now working together and will conduct, starting this week, gender sensitization workshops for MTC bus drivers and conductors. The question is, how much of a difference will this make on the ground? And does every city in India need such a sensitization drive and greater investment in public transport?
Ever since the brutal murder of Chennai techie Swathi, Chennai city has taken a beating when it comes to the safest city for women in India. We are aboard an MTC bus here in Chennai that travels from Anna Square to KK Nagar. A recent survey has indicated that most of women face harassment on public transport, especially on overcrowded buses. Experts say the government has to invest more in public transport, maximize its fleet to ensure that there is no overcrowding. In Chennai, with video journalist Videsh, Lokpriya, News X.
I'm a college student. I will say that Chennai transport is better and give it more safety for girls.
Yeah, it is safe. Definitely safe place. But sometimes it is difficult to travel in the crowded buses. That's the problem.
We have to be very secured enough to travel in a bus. Just we can avoid some things like we can travel in non-crowded bus like that. At least we can put some shawl. Nowadays, girls are not wearing shawl, first of all. I have seen many men have seen in some way, like some different way. So I don't want that to happen.
One of the most popular forms of public transportation in Chennai is that of the share auto, which we are right now. This popular public transport is used by many youngsters for reaching their destinations quicker. Also, overcrowded buses and trains has given rise to this share auto culture here in Chennai. Many college students use this because it's quicker and also more safe. In Chennai, with video journalist Videsh, Lokpriya, News X.
My opinion is it is safe because 90% of share auto men are okay, and that's why we believe and we come here.
I think public transport is not safe in Chennai and it must improve.
There's a general apathy among the people itself when any woman is molested or teased or any offence is committed against a woman in a public transport or in roads and streets also. What happens is people turn the other way around and the victim gets to become very helpless. The crew of the public transport system should be more vigilant. If only the culprits are immediately nabbed and taken to the nearest police stations, such things will not repeat itself.
We are here at Indiranagar railway station, which is part of the 17 MRTS stations in Chennai. These stations mark the city's reputation of being safe. Safety takes a backseat in most of these stations. Poor lighting, lack of police personnel and large empty spaces are a cause of concern. Despite repeated complaints from women passengers, many facilities in these stations remain unchanged. In Chennai, with video journalist Videsh, Lokpriya, News X.
around 1,800 people responded. It was a sample survey taken by us. There are positive and negative feedbacks from people. Like around 21% people feel Chennai is actually safe comparatively with other cities. Like traveling alone at night without depending on their friends or family, they could travel. Like other 70%, like you said, they agree that women are actually at the risk of being sexually or verbally harassed. 60% they experience such incidents. It includes both male and female.
We are about the MRTS train network here in Chennai, one of the most popular public transport system. This network is used largely by working class professionals. Women use this in large numbers during the morning rush hour traffic. However, there are complaints here as well, mostly about men travelling in compartments reserved for women. Following these complaints, the police have ensured that there are about 3 to 4 women constables on the station as well as on the train, and a helpline number has also been set up by the police. In Chennai, with video journalist Videsh, Lokpriya, News X.
All right. Is it true that most women in Chennai feel unsafe, and what can we do? What can the government do to make the situation better? Well, perhaps a series of measures that need to be taken. We are now joined to discuss that by my colleague Lata Srinivasan, senior editor of NewsX from Chennai. We're also hoping to be joined in a bit by Uday Sahai, former IPS officer from the National Capital. Remember, this is also a call-in show. We've opened our phone lines. The number is flashing at the bottom of your screen. Pick up your phone, call us on that number, share your views and thoughts with us. Lata, I'll come to you in just a moment. Before that, let's take our first caller. Jaya from Mumbai is on the phone line. Jaya, go ahead. This is perhaps not a problem restricted to Chennai.
Hello?
Jaya, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Right. So, Jaya, you are a woman living in Mumbai. My question is that, this is really not a problem confined to the women of Chennai. This is something that women across India face. What has your experience been like as a woman living in Mumbai, and what do you think we really need to do to tackle this everyday problem for women?
Yes, I would say that Chennai transport is one of the most lauded in Asia. It's very popular, used by most of the ladies and all the commuters in Chennai. So I strongly feel that first we must have very strong policing, and lady police and even the male police, and the mindset of the people who every city has to be. It's a national issue. Let me be frank.
Absolutely.
Yes, all the popular transport systems of the entire country, particularly in Chennai. So you have to have the mindset which has to be sensitized. They should realize that just if they are doing this to some other young lady or girl,
right,
there's a family member, it's their mother or the sister or their aunt or their daughter who's going to face the same thing. And this should at least make them, hesitate to do all such molestation or whatever.
Right, Jaya, if I could quickly ask you one question before I go across to my next caller. Now, a lot of people believe that till last year, Chennai actually had the reputation of being a relatively safe city for women. That reputation, that image took a hit after Swathi's brutal murder in broad daylight. People say those things even about Mumbai, that, we thought Mumbai was a safer city for women, and yet some of the stories that have been reported in the last couple of years don't inspire that confidence anymore. Is that a view you hold, being a woman living in Mumbai?
Hello.
All right. It seems we're having some trouble listening to Jaya, but Jaya, thanks very much for calling us and sharing your views with us. I'm told Hemant is on the phone line from Gujarat. Hemant, go ahead, share your views. It's not just women. Many men also seem to agree that our cities are very unsafe for women. And one large part of the problem is the state of our public transport. Do you agree?
बहुत बढ़िया है, लेकिन मैं इंग्लिश में समझता नहीं हूँ बहन जी.
हेमंत जी, आप हमें सुन सकते हैं?
हाँ, मैं हिंदी में समझ सकता हूँ.
जी बिल्कुल आप हिंदी में बात कीजिए. आप हमें बताइए, आपको क्या लगता है ये काफी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है महिलाओं के लिए?
ये जो इंग्लिश में आता है ना, तो थोड़ा बहुत मैं समझ लेता हूँ, लेकिन ये ट्रांसपोर्टेशन.
हेमंत जी, मैं आपसे सवाल हिंदी में कर रही हूँ, आप हिंदी में जवाब दे सकते हैं. हम विमेन सेफ्टी की बात कर रहे हैं. आपको लगता है कि ये बहुत बड़ी एक प्रॉब्लम है महिलाओं के लिए, खास तौर पे वो जो पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट इस्तेमाल करती हैं?
बोलो बोलो।
All right, we seem to have lost the line there to Hemant, but as we, in fact, wait for more of our viewers to connect with us, let me now also introduce Uday Sahai, former IPS officer, who joins us on the show. My colleague Lata Srinivasan with us too. Lata, let me come to you first. Now, you're a woman who lives in Chennai, and since this survey really does concern the women of Chennai, it says 70% of the respondents who were surveyed actually felt that women face the risk of being groped or harassed in one way or another when using public transport. How big a problem do you think it is? And given, that horrific episode involving Swathi's brutal murder shook up the entire country, would you say the image of Chennai has really taken a beating in the last 1 year as far as women's safety is concerned?
Yeah, I absolutely think that Chennai's image took a beating after the Swathi murder case, because it was a murder which happened in a station in broad daylight early in the morning around 7:30 or 8. And that was shocking because Chennai had never seen anything like this at all. And I think it really sent all the women into, a space of the fear, because if this could happen to a young girl who was, working in a multinational company or in broad daylight at a station, it could be any of them, right? So it put in a lot of fear, and considering the fact that there are thousands of women who travel every day by public transport, they take the train, they take the bus, they take the share auto, it instilled a sense of, could it be me next? Could something go wrong today? What could happen? And despite the fact that there is a helpline number, how soon will help arrive? Is it really effective? Those were questions that were also being raised. And the crowds are increasing every day in the public transport system. And the infrastructure also needs to, rise in relation.
That's a very important point you're making, Lata, because according to this survey, if I could just point out one important fact to you, there are about 3,500 odd buses that operate in Chennai, and they run on twice their capacity. So that's how bad the situation is. Before I go across to Uday Sahai, let me also ask you this, Lata. Now, we're told that this particular organization in question is going to, run a gender sensitization drive in coordination with the Tamil Nadu Transport Department. Do you believe that measures such as these can make a big difference and a real difference?
Actually, till a few years back, if you see, Chennai was a very, very safe place, and it ranked well among the safest places, I think in the top 10, if I'm not mistaken. Because there were a lot of initiatives which were taken by the Tamil Nadu government at that point. There were lady constables who traveled in the buses to ensure that such incidents didn't take place. There were also gender sensitization workshops which were being conducted by the Tamil Nadu police as well. And I think those measures, we need to check whether they are still in place or what has happened to them. And if these are not happening today at this point, then we need to figure out how to get them back in place. And the organization which is going to create these gender sensitization workshops, I think it's so important, at this point in time. If you look at the results of the survey, they are shocking. And it's a great thing that the organization is going to be doing.
Absolutely. But, the unfortunate reality is that a majority of women do not feel safe anymore, even in a city like Chennai, which seems to have really, undergone a complete metamorphosis as far as its image is concerned, all in the space of 1 year. Lata, stay with us. We'll come back to you in just a moment. Let me now go across to Uday Sahai. Mr. Sahai, of course, we are talking about the role of public transport in all of this and whether the government needs to do a lot more to augment our existing public transport and to make it safer. But before we talk about that, sir, you're a former police officer, and we need to talk about the role of the police, because the more we talk to people, especially women of all age groups, the more we are convinced that people just don't seem to have the confidence in the police force. They often feel that the police are either missing in action or just mute spectators and are not doing enough to crack down on this harassment that women face on our streets, on our buses, in our public spaces, almost on a daily basis. So why this trust deficit and why this identity crisis as far as the police force is concerned? What's your take on it?
Well, it's very natural that an incident like this in a broad daylight would shake people's confidence. But I do not agree that it takes, the image has taken a mass beating, because the image takes long time to, to acquire a particular shape, and it also should not, by just one sheer incident, take a complete beating. But yes, it's very important that Tamil Nadu police, which is otherwise an efficient force known for its efficiency across the country, should immediately look back, introspect, and take preventive and effective, proactive measures to ensure
that. So if I could just come in here. So if I could just ask you a supplementary question. As we keep saying, while this survey pertains to Chennai, this is not a problem confined to Chennai. This is something that women across the country feel. You talk to women here in the national capital, they'll probably tell you that this is the most unsafe part of the country for women. So it's unfortunately the same story for women across the country. But sir, the question it still remains that why is policing such a big problem area? Why does it leave so much to be desired? People say there is no fear of the law. They don't believe that. In most cases they feel the police are either missing in action, or even when they're around, these offenders seem to have no fear that the police are going to go after them. More often than not, women actually complain about victimization at the hands of the police themselves. So sir, there is a huge trust issue there. So let's focus for a moment specifically on the role of policing, sir.
Yeah, you are right. You are right that in general across the country, especially in the metros, there is an impression that the women are not safe. But the point is that they are your police, and therefore you need to understand their constraint, but at the same time they should themselves take stock of what they are doing in public transport. Public transport operates in public spaces. And by definition, they are a broad daylight or open kind of situations where the visibility plays a very important role. And visibility could be both in uniform and in plain clothes. I mean, if there is an impression that here, there, everywhere, police could crop up, could pop up because they are in plain clothes, it can certainly deter. And this can happen only when you not only deploy women police in good number mixed with male police, but you also ensure that this awareness campaign is spread through mass media, through television, through social media, etc. Which is missing. Many a times they take action, but they don't create an impression that they are taking action. One. Number two, many of these places like local trains, like public buses, you will have a lot of guys who are not professional criminals, but they would start harassing women by trying to rub their shoulder, etc., etc. And this kind of, there's no naming and shaming of these guys because they're all anonymous.
So I take your point that this is a larger problem, but I can't help but ask you repeatedly, why is there no deterrence in place, you think? Why is there no fear of the law? And why do people, and women in particular, not have the confidence that if they go to the police and seek help, help will be available? So I'll give you an example. Just a few days ago, a woman was molested by a man on the busy MG road in Gurgaon near Delhi. It's one of the most bustling areas of Gurgaon, home to so many of the malls. Eventually, it was left for the other women staff of this pub to come to the rescue of this woman, and what they did was to beat up this man. And the police claimed that, it's an area where there is heavy police deployment. But the point is that these things are happening out on the streets, the police are never around, and yet those claims are made that there is enough police deployment. So there is a problem there, isn't there, sir, of policing?
There is certainly a problem, and that's how the impression. And you can't have a impression getting made in the vacuum. So I do not deny that the impression does not exist. It certainly exists, but at the same time, you would also appreciate that many are things they do, you do not really know that it's being done. There's a problem of patriarchal attitude. At the same time, when you go and approach, they start questioning you, what happened, why happened, what you were
and
doing,
sir,
etc.
I'm sorry to say this, but there is often further victimization by the police of the victim who's already suffered enough. Like you said, uncomfortable questions being asked, character assassination, a finger of suspicion being pointed at the woman and her conduct. Unfortunately, that's what the police end up doing more often than not, isn't it, sir?
I would say that many a times it happens, and if you look at the background of many of these policemen on the ground, they come from rural areas, etc., having a feudal mindset, patriarchal mindset, so they are not very comfortable with situations where somebody, some educated girl confidently walking up to them and narrating that something has gone wrong.
Right.
So there is a kind of a mismatch, and because they are not specially sensitized, they are not able to handle it. I mean, I agree. I mean, there is no point in disputing this fact.
Okay.
And it's a high time where such pockets, you need to deploy a mix and match of both.
And
men
sir,
and
I
women.
honestly feel that when we talk about gender sensitization, we need to begin with the police. I think a lot of women will agree that we need to conduct these gender sensitization camps and workshops first and foremost for the police, who are supposed to make women feel safer, but unfortunately that does not happen. Lata, let me come back to you at this point. Yes, Uday Sahai makes some important points. It's a complex issue. Policing is one huge part of the problem. Then another part of the problem is this deeply misogynistic, patriarchal and feudal mindset that does seem to exist amongst a large section of our male population. Unfortunately, that is another reality we are faced with. Also, Lata, would it be correct to say that for a variety of reasons, maybe including fear of social stigma, a lot of times women are hesitant to even report these incidents? Forget going to the police. If somebody is groping them or harassing them on a bus, they'd probably not want to raise an alarm for fear of being the subject of unwanted attention.
Well, yes, that's right. One is, of course, the fear of unwanted attention. But the second issue is, what if this, the person whom they complain about, comes back tomorrow and does something even more reprehensible? That is another fear they have. They could be caught off guard in some lonely street by 2 or 3 guys. I mean, what happens then? So I think that fear is also there, that if they complain about anybody in particular and, what if there are repercussions, and they don't want to face that. So because of that, there's a lot of silence as well.
Absolutely. I think that is a good point you make. The fear of revenge and retribution is perhaps also something that, keeps women from complaining in such incidents. All right, Uday Sahai, I'll give you the last word. We're running out of time, but sum up this discussion for us. We have these debates and discussions so often in our TV studios. We, rattle off these statistics. Unfortunately, nothing much really seems to change. Now we know that the Tamil Nadu Transport Department, in conjunction with this particular NGO, is going to organize gender sensitization workshops. How much do you think that is going to help? And also, to what extent, sir, do you think the governments around the country need to work towards augmentation of public transport? Because a lot of women use public transport, and if we can make public transport safer for our women, then perhaps their mobility will be greatly enhanced. Is that something you agree with?
Absolutely. For example, in Delhi, you have now, unlike situation earlier where you had yellow and black taxis, you have Olas, you have Uber, and then you also have auto Olas, you have bikers who are taking you along, etc. And they are all technologically connected to a control room. There's some kind of a check and balance on them. They need to keep. So that's one technology solution which is in the offing, and that's very welcome.
Right.
Point one. Point two, that deployment wise, you need to get into a strategic deployment and have a mix and match of both women and men, constables or head constables, while they are getting into a patrol duty. And patrol duty again is a mix and match of foot patrolling and mobile patrolling and vehicle patrolling, etc.
Right.
So that mix and match invariably we find missing, and which is important.
All right.
Third is
Very
somebody
quickly,
goes
sir.
to the police station
Yes.
and she has been molested. Then who deals with her? And is that person gender
Equipped.
sensitive?
Absolutely.
To not ask uncomfortable, equipped,
Yes.
and at the same time make her comfortable.
All right.
And get into a drill, a SOP,
All
which
right.
is all defined.
So we've
and then-
completely run out of
then
time,
can
though I
get
take
the-
all the points that you're making, extremely valid points, but I have to say one more time that if we're talking about changing mindsets, it has to begin with our police force, because they're not ordinary men, they're public officials who are expected to make both the men and the women in our society feel safe. All right, with that, it's a wrap on the show. Thanks very much to Uday Sahai and Lata Srinivasan for joining us. And